Welcome back guys for another video. Today we're going to be covering the update 8.5 tier list. I've had a good amount of time to test out the units since there's only 4 of them. So today we're going to be ranking them. There's a lot of changes with the tier list itself because some of these units do buff other characters. So this is going to be a pretty interesting tier list, and watch until the very end to see who's the most powerful units in this update. But before I get started with this video, I just want you guys to keep it civil in the comments. This tier list is my opinion, and in all honesty, every tier list in Anime Vanguards is pretty much just the opinion of who is using them. Most of the units are good enough to literally be interchangeable since the game is very easy. It literally doesn't matter almost who you use, so most tier lists are pretty much just based on the opinion and personal biases sometimes of the user or maker, but I'll try to make this tier list as good as possible. Alright, so this is the tier list itself. There's a lot of characters in here that are have been changed. So my previous tier list, I didn't really have a lot of time to test the units out because I was mainly farming, but now I did have enough time and I did change a lot of stuff. Goblin Killer is now higher. He was literally in great units before, now he's here in meta. I moved a lot of characters down from top tier to meta units to make top tier a little bit more sacred, you know. And I changed a lot of spots as well because there's some units in updates 8.5 that are gonna be buffing characters in meta units, which is why they have been interchanged quite a bit. Alright, so to start, there's basically 4 units in update 8.5. We got Stark, FRIEZA, GOGETA, and Broly. Now, we're gonna start with Stark because in my opinion, I think he's the weakest character. Not really the weakest character, but just the character that you probably won't be using as much, right? He's not weak. I don't think this character is weak at all. I think he's actually really powerful, but there's a lot more characters that are powerful, and he doesn't do unique stuff enough for him to be used in this current meta, right? So even though he's powerful, there's a lot more characters that are more powerful than him, and since he doesn't do enough unique stuff, there's literally almost no point in using him. But he does have some slow, he does have some support capabilities. He can do slow, so I think he's enough to be put in meta. I would personally put him around here, below Aizen. And again, this is mainly because all the stuff that he does, just in my opinion, is personally not enough to put him higher in this tier list. He's also very expensive. If you don't have Monarch on him, he is 4 placement, by the way, so if you do get Monarch on him, I think it's fine, but I personally wouldn't want to get Monarch on him because he's 4 placement. He's good with Monarch still, by the way, great with Deadeye, but the problem with Deadeye is that his cost is too much, and I think overall he's just not unique enough of a unit, or he just doesn't do enough stuff for me to bring him any higher in this tier list. So the next one we have is going to be FRIEZA. This is where Stark is placed. So the next one we're gonna have is FRIEZA. Now FRIEZA, honestly, at this point, I probably just put FRIEZA as a support unit, especially if you don't have Monarch on him. Here's what I'm gonna say, right? There's no purpose, in my opinion, in the summoning Monarch or FRIEZA. And the reason why is because I don't think it's enough. What he does, I think, is enough. Not enough for him to be rerolled on. I wouldn't try to get Monarch on him, but if you do get Monarch on him, it's fine. I would put him as a support unit if you don't have Monarch on him, but with Monarch, I think he's great enough to where I'm gonna be putting him above Stark right here. And the main reason why he's above Stark, well, some people might say Stark's better. I just feel like I'll be using FRIEZA a lot more. So here's the deal with FRIEZA, right? If you do not have Monarch on him, you can use him as a support for Yuhaba and Griffith, right? So Yuhaba, you all know how Yuhaba works. He consumes rares and all that stuff. FRIEZA has an ability to summon other characters. He basically works like Gazelle, but he's a lot better version of Gazelle. So I tested this out with Yuhaba earlier, and when I tested it out, just Yuhaba and FRIEZA alone, he was able to get around 33,000 DPS just by bringing Yuhaba and FRIEZA. That's 33,000 times 2 because obviously Yuhaba does times 2 DPS. So he was able to support both Yuhaba and Griffith very well because he does turn into a 12 placement unit essentially because of the summons that he can do. Especially if you don't have Monarch on him. But if you do have Monarch on him, I think there's enough uses. There's enough uses for the stuff that he does. But I don't think you should be going for Monarch on FRIEZA. think he's more. I think it's better to use him as a food for Yuhaba and Griffith. So that's my personal opinion on FRIEZA. Do not reroll on him, but there are good uses, specifically for Griffith and for Yuhaba, right? Especially for the Yuhaba Glazers out there. There's a lot of uses with FRIEZA and Griffith. So now we're gonna move on to the next character, which is Gogeta. By the way, guys, our goal is to eventually get to 100k subscribers, and right now we are at 65,400 subscribers. Don't forget to click the like and subscribe button right now to support us in this journey to get to 100k subscribers, and by doing so, you also get to be part of the OG sub of AB Plays. So subscribe, and let's get on with this video. And before we start this, I think this is where I'm going to be going into Sandbox to personally test out these units. Alright, so here we are, and I will be using Gogeta here. So before I place Gogeta anywhere, actually I'm going to show you where I placed Gogeta already, just so that you guys know. But I will personally be placing Gogeta decently high into this tier list, higher than characters like FRIEZA, higher than these characters right here, and I will be personally putting him above these characters, probably above Sid. You know what? Probably not above Sid, but okay, I'll move Sid up here, and this is mainly because Sid is always used in leaderboards. The usage of Sid is far superior to Byaken because you use Sid a lot more in leaderboards and, you know, tournaments and stuff like that because of his nuke. But I'll personally put Gogeta right here. Now, the reason why Gogeta is right there is very simple. There's a lot of, well, there's not really a lot of fusion characters, but there's several fusion characters that are really, really good. Now, one of them is Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta. So as you guys can see right here, Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta is now only costing 135,000. If I remove Gogeta, he costs 181,000, right? 181,000 for Gogeta. All that this unit does, right? So essentially, I'll put down these two Gogeta, or these three Gogetas right here, and then I'll max them out. Now, you really want, in my opinion, Deadeye on this character, because I feel like that's really good. Now, with Monarch, he's gonna be a lot more selfish. Basically, what selfish means is you basically will want to build a team around him if you have Monarch. But if you have Deadeye, he's gonna be very, very expensive. So essentially, let me show you what he does right here and why he's actually pretty good. Now, his damage is not this one right here. It's not the 7,000. His damage is basically in the crit rate, in the critical attacks that he's doing. But just a fully built up passive Gogeta with traitless can actually do 100,000 DPS plus. And this is achieved essentially by multiplying the DPS, or multiplying the crit damage to their DPS, right? So you multiply 3 crit damage to 38,000, and then you multiply that by 2, and then divide that by 5.4. So I'm gonna do that right now. So right now, he's doing about 134,000 DPS across all of these guys right here. Again, this is by doing crit damage times his damage, because he's basically doing critical attack every attack. He has a crit rate of 100%, so every attack he does is literally a critical attack. So you multiply his crit damage, which is 3.12, as you guys can see right here, to this damage right here. So it becomes 38,000 times 3.12, which you multiply that by 2 because of his follow-up, divided by 5.4, and then you multiply that by all of his placements, and you get around 134,000 DPS. I'm sorry if my math is probably incorrect, but essentially what I'm trying to show here is that his DPS is pretty good. It just does take time to build up this character. You need to pretty much build a team around him in order for you to use him. Now, Broly is a very powerful unit that a lot of people are thinking is bad, and it's just because they're just looking plainly at his damage. Now, let me show you his damage right now. If I max him out, it's only 265,000 with doing basically 31,000 DPS. So that's pretty much his damage that people are seeing, and that's why they're saying he's bad. Now, this is very, 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 very unfair because most of his damage is going to happen while his Wrathful Clash domain is active. So, and yeah, by the way, he can get a 2 times DPS boost. So you guys aren't really taking that into consideration. And the 2 times DPS boost is basically from this right here. He's doing 531,000 damage right now. and he is doing a follow-up while he's doing this. So if he attacks and does not crit, he follows up with attack 1. So this is technically times 2 already. But this is, by the way, still a times 2. So you're still gonna be multiplying his damage by 2 because he's doing a follow-up as per his third passive. So this right here is essentially 120,000 DPS still. And the reason he's gaining crit is because of his passive. He has a passive right here. Every wave this unit gains 5% crit rate up to 95%. Anytime this unit crits, cleanse self debuff. So now he's at 100% crit rate. And if I do his Wrathful Clash right here, this is where things really start to go crazy. Because again, now every attack he does is a critical. You're now going to be multiplying his damage to his crit damage. Because every attack he does is a critical attack. Every attack he does will be multiplied by the crit damage. So we're gonna max out his crit damage right here. So I just did the math right now. If you multiply 398,000 to 3.15, so how I came around that number, basically it's his crit damage multiplied by his damage right here, which is 398,000. Again, every attack he does is a crit, so you have to multiply his damage by his crit damage. So 398,000 multiplied by 3.15 is going to be around 1,253,700. And then you have to add his critical attacks or his follow-up attack. So you multiply that by 2. And then you have 2.5 million, divide that by 8.4. So right now, he's doing 298,500 DPS. Now, if I spawn an enemy right here, is going to pretty handedly get rid of that DPS or that health. So as you guys can see right here, this is not adding familiars. I also do have a familiar right here that has a 44.5 increase to crit damage, which does not show here. So realistically, his damage is probably well over 300,000, or DPS is well over 300,000 right now. Actually, in the future, once there are more unbound units, it will actually be very, very, very nice, which will allow him to probably age really, really well. As you guys can see, the enemy now only has 18.73 million HP left, which is actually not that bad. He did a lot of damage in the span of only a few seconds to about a minute. Now, where do I think Broly will place? I think Broly will place in the top tier. Now, here I have Sukuna at number 1. The official wiki has Sukuna at number 1, and this is mainly because Sukuna is a really, really great early defense unit. He only costs about 2,000 to place down, whereas Broly costs about 3,000 to place down. I probably will lower Sukuna to something like this, and this is because Sukuna can be an early defense unit, but really there's a lot of units that can early defend, and I feel like for the really hard game modes that you need an early defense, I feel like Broly can do that better than Sukuna. So that is why I'll put Broly ahead of Sukuna, and I'll lower Sukuna's placement down to number 5. And this is going to be the final tier list right here. So Kaguya is at number 1. Again, the top tier, this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. At this point, actually only the top 5 are pretty much interchangeable. You can interchange Kaguya and put her here, put Escanor here. It really will depend on who you want to use more at this point. You can even argue Broly at top 1. You can argue Sukuna at top 1. It's just that right now, these 5 characters are just at the top. And that's pretty much it for today's video, guys. I'll see you guys in the next one. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And peace out, everybody. And I'll see you guys in the next one.